Hi, this is Brian with B&L PC Solutions. I wanted to put out a video for you guys and kind of discuss the recent cyber attacks and cybersecurity breaches that have occurred in the last few months, and get into a little bit of detail about them. Maybe a little bit steered towards the small business owner, but some of the key points are applicable to any end user as well. When it comes to security breaches, nobody is safe in any capacity. We put security measures in place, and I'm sure you guys do too, to kind of help minimize your risk or exposure, make that window, make it as tight as possible, try to tighten it up. But there's no dollar amount that's going to say spend this much and you're not going to get breached. That's just not how it is. Um, I mean, if we talk about some of the recent breaches, we have LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Equifax, Target, Yahoo, Marriott, and that's from this year back to 3-4 years ago. And those are some of the big names that were compromised. Now let's bring up the Colonial pipeline breach, right? That's the largest fuel pipeline in the United States. They paid a $4.4 million ransom. And that's a real number. And they were down hard. The hackers stole 100 gigabytes of data from the pipeline, from the Colonial pipeline. And that 100 gig, to put it into terms that may be easier to understand, is on average about 20,000 songs. The average song is 3 to 4 minutes at a decent audio compression, or it's about 33,000 photos at a decent quality. So that's the volume of data that was taken from the Colonial pipeline. How did they get access to that? That was, believe it or not, from a compromised password. What is a compromised password? Well, if there's a data leak somewhere and your password is exposed and then sold on the dark web, maybe it was a password for, and this is speculation, but a password for an employee for their social media account or bank account or whatever. And that password happened to be the same password that was used on their network. That's their in, right? So in this case, it was a compromised password that had VPN access to the pipeline, to the network. There was not two-factor authentication on that account. So once those credentials were breached and then used to gain access to the network, there was no two-factor, and we push two-factor to our clients daily, from Office 365 to VPN access to remote access, you name it. You see it with your banking. I mean, that's a layer that must exist. You shouldn't do anything you're logging into if you're not getting pinged or requested from a second factor of authentication. That's on you to reach out and to your bank, your whatever account you're using, and enable two-factor authentication. A lot of them have it as an option now. We enforce it for a lot of things that we push down. We don't give it as an option. It's a mandatory, or you don't get access. And that's how they were breached. So on May 7th, that was the first time in their 57-year history that they shut down that pipeline. And this is a company that moved 2.5 million barrels of fuel daily to the Eastern Seaboard. They were shut down. I think they came back online on May 12th, and but that short amount of time had such an impact nationally, not only from the media presence of the breach, but at the gas pump, you felt you may not have been able to get gas, or the prices were increased. That was the impact of that. The second one I want to talk about is this Kaseya breach that happened July 2nd. You may be sitting there saying, I don't know Kaseya, didn't affect me. And that may be the case. Not that you don't know it. If you don't know it, you simply don't know it. If you think it didn't affect you, you could be mistaken. Let me explain what happened here, and who potentially can be impacted. So Kaseya is a large software vendor, and they primarily exist in the managed service space. Now, a managed service provider, MSP, all these terms that you may have come across. Managed service provider is a company like myself. We provide IT services to small businesses that either have full-time people that we do some co-managed IT with them, or they don't have a full-time IT person or staff, and they outsource everything to an MSP. And everything from cybersecurity to Office 365 to licensing to asset control to VCIO services, and the list can go on and on depending on how much you want to invest in your infrastructure. So these managed service providers, you engage in an agreement with them, and we will support your network. We'll handle the security patches, the weekly maintenance, remote access, troubleshooting, help desk, all these resources that you need. These companies are there for you. Now, how do they do that? Right. So they use software. They install an agent on your endpoints, your servers, your desktops, your laptops, your phones. And these agents allow these companies to perform their services. It's been that way for years, and that's how the businesses are able to support thousands of endpoints with a single pane of glass. Kaseya provides these services to managed services provider, and us as an MSP, we have there's a ton of agents we can use for this service, and Kaseya was one of the big names that a lot of MSPs use. So what happened was Kaseya had gotten compromised, and the hackers were able to infiltrate the endpoints of these managed service providers, which could be their clients, right? Infected their clients, and encrypted their data and demanded ransom. So, we were fortunate. We don't use that product, but again, did we dodge a bullet? Certainly. I mean, it wasn't us. We weren't affected. But there's measures in place that we take to prevent something like that from happening to us and to our clients. The first one being, we all have to have two-factor authentication to get into our management portal, right? So do our clients. If they want access to their computers, they have to have two-factor authentication. Have a tight, what we call cybersecurity stack in place. Not just antivirus. Antivirus is not going to do it. Checks and balances in place. If something happens here, what's the reaction or the course taken, and if one of these events are triggered, is that in place now? So again, we have EDR, which is endpoint detect and respond software. We partnered with SentinelOne, and that's our choice, and that's what we decided to go with, and we're very happy with it. That alone isn't going to get you through something like this. We have a SIM SOC solution that is going to monitor the activity that's happening on the networks, listen to all the chatter and all the back and forth, all this traffic, make sure the traffic is legitimate, make sure there's nothing rogue out there listening or doing something behaviorally that it shouldn't be doing. We use a product called ThreatLocker. ThreatLocker is going to basically, that's application whitelisting and ring fencing the applications that don't need access to do things that they're not allowed to do or shouldn't be doing. How does that work? It basically, we installed that software on all of our endpoints, all of our clients, and we tell it you can run Office, but Office can't do this. You can run Mozilla, you can run Chrome, but this is the access that it can have. And we take a baseline of all your, or an inventory, application inventory of what you're running. Look at all the hashes on all the files and programs, and check the boxes and allow those applications to run. In the event something rogue comes in, it's not going to run. It's not going to meet the criteria that Threat Locker has has written to its policies. It's not going to approve that. It's going to stop stuff like that. Again, this is for this specific type of attack. So, we're fairly confident that our clients that listen to us and follow our guidance at our QBRs or YBR reviews, and take our advice, and we really strongly push cybersecurity at every chance we can. We market it, we talk about it, we send out emails, we engage, and we try to just raise that awareness. And you don't want a breach to be a point where you just now want to react and have fallen victim to something. We want to set recovery points. How long does it take, or should it take, for you to recover from an event like this? Do you have a written incident response plan? Meaning that if there is an incident, what is the plan for recovery on that? If you don't have that, work with us. We'll help you write that. We'll write it for you and test it and implement it and make sure it's updated. A cybersecurity policy, a disaster recovery, business continuity policy. How does your business continue to run in the event of a breach? What are those? What's that timeline look like? And if you can't answer these questions, that's something that you should be thinking about today, is having these answers and being able to sleep at night, knowing that in the event of a breach, you have a process in place. We're not saying we're going to, stop it. We're going to try to mitigate it as soon as possible, shorten that window of identifying a breach, but with the right tools in place, we can really make it difficult for something like that to happen. And there's no time that we can say, you're going to be good for this year. No, I mean, it's every day, all day. There's attacks and attempts on your networks that are, of these bots and hackers trying to get in. There's threat actors sitting all over the place. Let us run a, Office 365 security check and see how secure your Office 365 is. Is there any holes in your network? Are you not patched? I mean, these are all things that a managed service provider should be doing for you guys. Should be making sure your firmware is up to date on your switches, on your firewalls, on your hardware, laptops, desktops. That's all firmware, and there's releases and updates to that for these reasons. And if you're not diligent enough to make sure that this is done or being done for you, then that's the question you need to raise with your local IT staff or your current MSP, and sit with them today and say, where am I? Let me see that everything I own is up to date. Let me see the type of protection we have. What options do we have? What's our recovery time in the event of a breach? Do we have an incident response plan? Get these questions answered and make yourself comfortable with these terms. And don't, you do not want to fall victim and be reactive in any of these situations. And Kaseya was, that was a big one for the industry. A few months ago, SolarWinds was breached. Their Orion platform was compromised, and that again took down a significant number of businesses. So we want to help mitigate that risk and minimize your exposure. So just make sure that some of these things that I mentioned are being done. If you need any help, give us a call. We can give you a hand, and we'll do a network and security assessment, a cybersecurity assessment, a HIPAA assessment, whatever check boxes you need to have checked. It's worth the labor and time to do it now, rather than to reactively realize that you have your office of 10, 20, 50, 100, 500 employees is completely down. You've lost your data and you can't work. We don't want to see that happen, because and you not have a plan for that. So just wanted to kind of cover these breaches and just stress the importance of doing your cyber diligence, have cyber security insurance, have policies in place, and the cost on these policies is increasing because of the compromises that are taking place against companies that are unprotected. So just like with auto insurance, the more accidents you have, the higher the insurance is, right? I mean, so it's no different with your cyber liability insurance. Get yourself a policy. We have a vendor that we work with that we just refer him. We refer them. We don't. We're not partnered with them. It's the company that we use. So we refer them to prospects, clients, and allow them to tell you what you need to have in place in order for them to insure you. They'll turn down writing up a policy if you don't meet the criteria that they require. And you guys see it with PCI compliance. You take credit cards, you have to have, these 100 questions answered, and they all have to be answered to the point of you assuming the risk, right? So if you say that you have backups on site and off site and they're verified and tested, and you get breached, they look at that PCI questionnaire they sent you, and you said that you had that done. So they say, okay, no problem. You were breached. Let's go to your backup, and you go back and say, oh, well, that backup wasn't good, or the backup was corrupt, or that backup wasn't tested. You've just violated your PCI compliance, and now you're on the hook for tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines because that information was not honest. So again, we can help with that. It goes on and on and on. I just wanted to kind of, because of these breaches are happening daily. They're not letting up, and we monitor the dark web for our clients for any credentials that are out there. And again, the dark web is a nasty, dirty place. This is where it all happens. This is where your information, your PII, your personal identifiable information is bought and sold for pennies on the dollar. They'll buy your username and password to your Facebook. That happens to be the same one that you use for your online banking. Or you know what? You get creative and you change your characters, and they can automate this process, millions of permeations of your password in milliseconds. So that they're just hammering away at everything without you knowing it. So we monitor the dark web to find any exposures. Once we find it, we let you know. And you know what? Change this password everywhere. We force periodic password changes for our clients. If you're on your network and you haven't changed your password in more than 3, I mean, I'll give you 6 months. If you haven't changed it in 6 months, that policy needs to change. And they need to be complex. This is all things that are going to, every checkbox that we check is going to minimize your risk. And that's what we want to do. Let us thwart some of these attacks and don't fall victim. All right. Thanks again. Appreciate your time. Brian Bratcher, B&L PC Solutions.